Okay, so here we go. These are your sample introductions. Perfect. We've got their specific role. We have the years of experience. That is exactly what we're looking for. We know what they did. We know how long they worked for. Got their license there. Perfect. We know exactly what their license did. Okay. So we've got the numbers of houses. We have the GPA that's listed. Perfect. But as you look at these, though, and I think everybody's sort of caught on with all of these different pieces, right? I'm going to get my laser pointer up here, right? This first one, right? We've got this journeyman, right? We know, and we're using their terminology. So if you're in the electrician field and you hear the word journeyman, you know that level of certification, that's the level that you are at. It's kind of like military type of things, right? That if you're in the military, you've got a certain level that you're at, right? So a journeyman level tells us where they're at. We know their background, obviously, they're an electrician. We know that they've done 6 years of this work. But what's cool here is that this person, by using these words, is telling that company, this is the type of work I did. I did low voltage work, right? These are not the guys or women who are hanging off of the power poles, climbing up there, fixing those large power systems, right? And the power grids, right? They're coming into smaller systems. They're coming into the companies of doing all that basic repair work. But we've got skilled in interpreting blueprints and schematics, which means that these people don't just come in and go, oh, okay, I'm just going to fix your fuse box, right? That these people, because they're skilled in this, tells us that they probably have worked with some basic houses, starting from the beginning of going, okay, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to install this to fit that system? And then by also including the electrician license from California. By including this, and they are applying for a job in California, it means that that company doesn't have to go out and pay to get that license transferred. Okay. So some licenses can be transferable between different states. So for teaching certificates in particular, I can apply in various different states because I have a reciprocal license, meaning that if I apply for a job here in Washington State, California will accept it exactly the way it is, right? My license in Washington State fits there. So by including this, again, that's telling us is they don't have to go back out and pay for it. If they really like this person, the company will go, fine, we're just going to pay to transfer this for you. You just saved them some money. We go over here to the other one. We got a recent graduate in marketing. Perfect. They told us it's a 3.9 GPA. Do I have to include the GPA? No, I don't have to include it. Okay. And we'll see that a little bit later. If the GPA is not going to help me, don't include it. But honestly, a 3.9 in marketing, that's pretty dang good. Okay. And then the thing is, for this particular person, because they just got out of school, they're not going to have the experience our electrician has. So what they have to do is they have to talk about the things that they did through their interning position and the things that they did through their coursework. Okay. What's also important is that they're very specific. This lower part here includes their objective. I am looking to fill this role at this company. Okay. I'm bringing my skill set to you because I want to work for you. Right. And that's the key thing. So in both situations, you can see nice, short, simple, to the point. Okay. Now, if we decide to do this with skills and qualifications, we're going to do sort of the same thing, except it's now a bullet point list. It's easy to read. Okay. When you do this, you're going to take your skill set and you're going to build it around what they are looking for in their job. So I'm going to look for those and I'm going to add those into that section. So that might be journeyman, electrician journeyman, for 6 years or whatever that might be. I'm going to include that there. We're going to also include, we have both the hard and soft skills. Okay. The hard skills, those are the technical skills, the specific things that you're trained in, whatever that might be. Your soft skills would be, I'm a people person, I'm a team leader, self-manager, a lot of those types of terms. But the key here is that final bullet point. You want to use the terminology from their job description. A lot of times you can literally take their job description, cut and paste it into that section, right? And then add it, delete all of their extra stuff that they put there, but you're still using their words. And then what you're going to do is you're going to show how you fit that qualification following that up. Again, nice bullet point list, maybe 5 bullet points at the most. Nice, short, simple, to the point, easy for us to see. Okay. Key though is that terminology that you're looking for there. And remember that terminology, we're using that specifically because that's something that tracking system is going to be aware of when they're looking for things, when they're scanning your document. Now we get to your professional experience. This is your work experience piece. Okay. What do we want to have here? We want to know who the company is that you work for. We want to know the city and the state. We want to know the days that you work there. Okay. Or the employment dates. It can be year to year. It could be year to the present, whatever that might be. It doesn't really matter. We want you to list all of the things below it talking about the skills that you did at that job. Don't just tell me you worked at that company. Tell me exactly what you did. In publishing, we talk about this as show, don't tell. Okay. So show us what you did. Give us those hard numbers. Okay. Use action verbs. I have a handout a little bit later that you're going to see here. That handout of action verbs is included in the Canvas module. So you can print out that list for yourself. Okay. The idea here is, again, show us what you're doing. Now, I often have people who will bring up the whole idea of like, what if I haven't worked here I haven't been working for a while. Maybe I did a stay-at-home mom or dad thing. How do I deal with that? What if I quit my main job, I did gig work, and then I'm coming back for a full-time thing? People get that. You can explain that in your cover letter later on. It's not going to bug people. Okay. I had somebody last quarter when I taught this, they said, could somebody potentially look at this and say, I only want younger people? Yeah, they can. I'm going to call that one out right now. Is that age discrimination? Yeah, but you're never going to be able to prove it. But if they're looking to only hire young people, it's going to jump out really quickly. So I just want you to be clear on that one. It's not that you can hide it, but you do need to tell us, when you work there and things like that. Okay. So that's your professional experience. Take a look at this one right here. We got this person who has worked for David's Bridal Wedding Planners. So we know that obviously they're a wedding planner. A lot of the things you can see on the bullet point list right here, nice, simple 4 bullet points. Probably could have trimmed it down a little bit more, but you kind of get the idea. consult with clients on catering, venue, budget options, things like that. So we know that that's the role that they played as a wedding planner. Obviously coordinated things, but the key thing that I want you to notice here, back to my laser pointer here, accommodating below budget 40% of the cases. I can bring you in below budget. That's what people want to see. They want to see that you have the ability to bring this in below budget. Saving them on an average of 10% in their budget costs. On average, I can do this over and over and over again. Now, because they are a wedding planner, this is where that Yelp rating is really going to become important. Okay, because that's how the people who are looking for a wedding planner, that's where they're going to go to. They're going to get online and they're going to go, wow, look at this. If I've got a 95% customer satisfaction rating on Yelp, with 5 stars on various different websites, that says that this person, when they're applying for the job, does good work and people like them. That's what you're shooting for, right? So, pay attention to those. Obviously, if this person doesn't have any of these ratings, do we want to include those? No. But overall, this person shows that when they come in and they're applying for these jobs, they are doing what people want them to do. Okay, that they're bringing in those numbers and they are making sales. Okay, try to get my pointer off here so I'm not using this anymore, but some reason, there we go. Okay, so far so good. Any questions at this point? Okay, here we go then. Education experience. Your education, you're going to list the school names that you went to, okay? Where that school was located, okay? What your degree was, what your graduation year is. Now, I am going to tell you right now, I'm going to pull out my pen. You can also you don't have to include that one, okay? You do not have to include that one. Now, I'm saying you don't have to because it's one of those that it could be an optional thing if you feel it's necessary. If it's a computer science industry, I probably would not include my graduation year just because computers are always changing and things like that. We might not want to include that graduation year if we feel that people are going to go, wow, this person has got their degree 40 years ago. That starts to tell us things. So you could list school name, location, and degree. You're good to go. Only list the stuff that's relevant and recent, right? I'm not going to list my student teaching experience, right? I always laugh at that one when if I apply for a job in a different district where I'm really trying to, really try to gamble and see if I can get a job in Hawaii because I hate the weather right now. If I'm applying for a job in Hawaii, right? They might ask for, what was your student teaching experience and can we contact those people? I'm like, you know how many years ago that was? No, I'm not going to include that, right? But they still force me to include it, so I have to include it and then they have to explain later. I might want to include the GPA, maybe only if it's important. But I am going to include coursework, okay? So my daughter is an equestrian coach. So she teaches people and she coaches those horse teams that run around and jump the 1,600-pound horses over big fences. Under her relevant coursework, she is going to include a lot of the skill set that she got in her degree, which was equine business management. So she's going to include the skill sets such as being able to run stables and barns. She's going to include her breeding certificate. Okay, she's going to include that information. She may not include the GPA. Okay, academically, she struggled mostly because of the business side of things. That's where she struggled with them. But she's going to include that coursework, especially if she's applying for that job. And in fact, that's what got her the job where she's a full-time coach now in Florida. Okay, so it was that coursework that got her that job in that resume. So that's what we're going to include in our education piece. If we take a look at this one right here, we've got this person, they are expecting to graduate at this particular time. We know that they are an honors student. I've got a 3.8 to 4.0 listed. I may or may not include that. I might just leave that as summa cum laude. That's okay. I think that that's important. Now, if we look at the relevant coursework, this is an area where personally for me, I'm going to go probably not necessary. Okay. And I'm going to say it's not necessary because this person's getting a degree in econ. Those are all your classes you're normally going to get in econ. What I'm going to list here would be specific courses maybe that I took, those specialty econ courses like international economics. Whoa, there'd be a big one, especially if I'm applying for a job in an international company, or digital marketing, right? I might include something like that. But look, calculus, quantitative reasoning, that's normal. So, but you can still see kind of how it's listed. So again, pick and choose what you want to include. We've got the honors and awards. We've got this person's been on the dean's list. That's important. Nothing wrong with this one. They were a Pathway Scholarship recipient in 2019. Great. Go ahead and list it. It's not going to hurt you if you put it in there. Okay. Now, if you're most likely to succeed, probably not one that you need to list. Okay. Those additional items that you might want to include, again, this is, I just copied and pasted this from the first one. Obviously, that person with the journeyman certification, I might want to include that and actually put the certificate number in there and the license. If I've got a language skill set, right, I want to know, am I proficient in this? Am I a translator, whatever that might be? If you don't have this, don't feel the need to have to put it in there. Okay, hobbies and interests. This one's important only if it applies to what you're doing. So if I'm applying for a school job, I will include the fact that I've worked with like scouting programs, but I've also worked as a USA swim official, which means that I've worked with other kids. Maybe I've worked as a childcare specialist at my church, right? That's a hobby, especially if you're applying for a job in a K-12 system. Otherwise, don't include it, right? I don't need to know that you like to crochet, right? That's not necessary. Now, if you're applying for a job at a quilting store, yeah, that's when you want to include that material, if that makes sense. It should. It's pretty basic. So pick and choose. If it's necessary, include it. If not, don't worry about it. There's our action verb list right here. This page is in your the module, so you can download those. These are the words, if you're always realizing that you just keep using the same word over and over and over again, you can kind of pick and choose those words, whatever seems to be helping you out. I just always like to have this list with me. I have it printed up in my classroom so students can see it and they go, ooh, I don't like that word. Then use a different word. Kind of shake things up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to talk about how the format of your resume looks. Okay, so we are building that resume. We've got all the content. Now we want to know how it visually looks. Remember our first impression piece. We want to keep it simple. Okay, we don't want to overly complicate things. Remember that short period of time. We want to bold print things that we definitely want to say, you need to pay attention to this. We want to use the terminology that they used. Remember my example of DEI versus EDI. I'm going to change those words around. Okay. If I apply for a job that wants a master's degree in English, my master's degree is in literacy, which involves English. So I might go master's degree English, parentheses, literacy specialty. So now I'm still sort of saying the exact same thing. That way I'm going to get through those digital scans. Okay. Change that format for each job that you apply for. And you'll notice I've also put down here grammar, grammar, grammar. Fix that grammar, fix that spelling every single time. Print it off, look at it, verify that you've written exactly what you've got. Okay. Check, did you change your phone number? Small little things like that. That's all it takes. Okay, so check it for that grammar. So we're going to look at some examples of some resumes right now. Okay, Checking my time here. Where are we at? There we go. We are in great shape. So we're going to take a look at some sample resumes here. These sample resumes are included again in that module, so you can take a look at those, but we want to kind of see how each of these work. So this first batch comes actually off of a website or a company that will design your resumes for you. And you look at these resumes and you go, wow, those are really fancy. The problem is that these resumes can't be scanned. Okay. They are overly pretty, they are fancy and everything like that. There's some positives and negatives. I do state later, and there's a slide for this one, that you can have a resume like this. If I'm going in for the job interview, I might hand them this version of the resume. Okay. And it's going to give them a lot of different things that they can work with here. Let's just kind of look at each of these. I will start with good old Michelle Robinson's right here. And when I look at this one, I look at her picture and I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks like she just Instagrammed herself, right? It was did her selfie and everything. Until you look and you realize she's a graphic designer and you're like, yep, okay. That's showing you the image of what she's trying to promote. Okay. And we get a lot of different things, right? We can see everything that she's got. We've got her skill set down here. She's using kind of this bar level that kind of says this is roughly where I'm at. She's included her references here. You don't need to. Andrew has included his references. You'll notice that Carla has not. If I don't want to include the references, I can change those out. But this person's included them because if they're a graphic designer, they know it's all word of mouth. Okay. Andrew over here, word of mouth, graphic and web designer. He's going to want them to contact those people and go, how'd this person work? This person's a marketing person. Okay. Doesn't really matter. We take a look at Michelle and Carla's pictures, right? You can see fits the job. Carla's picture, really one of those professional things. Carla, she's a marketing person, right? We know who she is. Okay. But again, all three of these are the ones again that you're going to bring into that resume. Now, the cool thing about this, I don't know if Andrew's got a picture behind his or not. I don't know. The nice thing about this is that when I go into that job interview, they're going to hold that resume and they have a picture of who I am. They can remember me visually now. They can see that picture and they're going to go, yep, that's who that person was. I remember that person. Okay. You're not just words on a page. But the key is these are not good for digital scanning. Okay. So we want to avoid these right now. Use them for going in for a job fair where you're meeting people face to face, but not for applying online. I would not recommend it unless they just say attach it, and maybe you can, but I think it's one of those that I would probably skip. Okay. So let's take a look at these sample resumes. So we're going to look at two of them here. We're going to look at Sydney's first. What I want you to do with this one, and I've got over on the side of the screen, I do have for you my thoughts. I want you to kind of ignore those right now. And I want you to look at this and identify the things and kind of see what they're doing and how they're structuring things. So we're going to start with Sydney's first here. Okay. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this one. Take a look at this one, and then we're going to talk about it. You can chime in, you can put them in the chat box. Add the job position that they're applying for. Okay, that could certainly be something. So certainly that could pop up there at the top. You'll notice that we said, we want a summary statement. That could be something really specific. Okay, so if we work our way through this particular one, get my pointer back up here, and well, actually, we just use the pen here. So the first thing I want you to notice, remember when I told you about the name piece, right? That I look at this, we don't know. Okay. Now, we can take a pretty good guess once we start reading into the resume that Sydney is female. We can get a pretty good guess. We're stereotyping. I get that we're stereotyping, but there's a pretty good guess that that's the case. But we're not really sure. Okay. We know that this person is is still in college, obviously. Okay. So they are planning on getting that degree. They could have put down here that they're pending, but we know that they have a school address. Okay. So this is one of those introductory type of things. Maybe they're just sending out maybe for an internship. We don't really know. Okay. So could we have put a summary statement in there? Yeah, maybe our skill set, whatever it is that we're focused on. I think that those could have been important. Maybe this person is just saying, I want just a single page document. Okay. And they're keeping it to one page only. And that's okay. So again, just kind of look at the formatting of this. You'll notice that the way that they set up their education, instead of bullet pointing it, they put them side by side like this, okay? Back and forth. Now, here's why they probably did this. If we're trying to keep this whole document to one page, putting it side by side keeps it in one page, okay? Listing it, kind of, if you picture how much that they would lose, that whole skills section down here at the bottom, that skills section goes to the next page. Okay, so by formatting it and putting it side by side like this, that's going to help. Now, you also notice that we said that it's not chronological, it's subject area that they focused on. And this is really kind of a cool approach to consider. If you are applying for a job in general, and instead of going, let me just show you the jobs I've done, but instead I want to focus on that skill set. When we do that, if we look over here, the thing that your eye goes straight to are retail and marketing, project management. So your brain automatically sees those points, and your brain sees what this person's doing. Retail marketing experience, product management or project management. Wow, this person sounds amazing, right? And it's really important that we stress that, because once you get into what this person has done, you can see that they've sort of elevated their jobs a little bit, okay? Because guess what? They're in college. They're in college. Most of this is probably part-time type of work, okay? Part-time work experience, right? Take a look at this. Elevated Associate Limited Brands Victoria's Secret. So they're using the title that they are given. That's the title that Victoria's Secret is given the people who are salespeople at Victoria's Secret. Okay? Right? So they're the people selling the products in Victoria's Secret, right? Then we get student color. Okay? That's job experience. That's just good old basic everyday your job stuff, right? It's work, work study, right? And then we get sales associate seasonal from September through March. They're there for the Christmas season. That's what they were there for. Okay. So you can see if I listed that chronologically, it's not going to look that cool, right? But by labeling it this way, it comes across as this person is actually really trying to do something important with their life. Okay. It's really kind of heading in that direction. Then we get down here, product management, right? This is where specific numbers could have been really important here. Okay. Because if you look at the skill set that they've got down here, get my pen going here. I want to know numbers, right? Numbers. There we go. We want to know those numbers, right? These people did done like look at that, facilitated and organized major citywide conference. Great. You brought in 500 people. You brought in X number of vendors. Show me that you did the product management piece or project management. Give us the numbers. Give us the dollar figures that you brought in. That is going to be important. Okay. Then we get down here. Here's the things that this person did. Not a problem. Shows that they're a community worker. Okay. The skill set down here shows you kind of what they can do. It's pretty basic, nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Okay. The structure here with the bullet point or with the bars works great because your eye visually kind of sees it in sections. Okay. And that's going to help you out a lot. So let's take a look at this next one right here. And we're going to take a look and see what Marcos has got. Okay. This one's going to take a little bit more. I want you to look at the structure, but really think and use your brain on this one here. Okay. Give yourself a couple minutes here to look this one through. Throw those comments in the chat box or again, scream them out to me. Yeah, a positive of having that statement, that intent and the objective, that is really important for this particular one. Got it. Thank you. I like the fact that we moved the languages to the top because they're applying for that international job. Perfect. I've got to tell you, you are like one of the first people who've actually caught that one every time I've taught this resume. So class, so great job. Pat yourself on the back. There you go. Woo. Their use of bold print things certainly brings things to the forefront. You got it. So let's take a look at this one, right? And we'll work our way through this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to use my pointer for this one here. What about adding a photo? So adding that photo, is that going to scan, right? Is that going to help you, right? We talked about adding that photo on the earlier ones because you're going to be remembered in an interview, right? But this is that first impression that we've talked about. People don't remember you based on just what you put here. That's not going to help you get remembered. Remembering you is when they've already seen you once before. Okay, so photos not going to be something that can be scanned, just like we talked about. Let me see if I can zap back here. One more. Boop. Right, these, right, as we said, are ones that cannot be scanned. So obviously putting the photos here, higher quality paper, we turn those in. That's great if it's a face-to-face one, but you're not gonna, the whole concept of being remembered, right? You're not being remembered off of these. It's just it's your first impression. Okay, so we take a look at this. Let's start at the top with that objective piece. Okay, and I think that that's really, really important. By reading this, we now know what this person is shooting for. And a lot of people skip that step. They look at this and they're going to go, and they start looking at all the other formatting until you realize, look, this person is looking for an internship position with international affairs, working with people through South America. Very specific is what they're doing. Once you log that into the back of your head and you start looking at everything that they've done through here, this person stands out, right? And what did they do? They brought their language piece right up to the top to make sure that you knew that they were 100% fluent in these languages. Like if I'm shooting for an international intern, man, I'm grabbing Marcos immediately based on this, right? This is just like, whoa, this is the person I want to see. Extensively traveled through this area. So that means the person knows what they've done. Using all of these points along the side here, where we've got education, language, international experience, I can spot those really quickly, right? My eyeball goes straight to those, but it's like relevant experience. But I got to still bring you in a little bit more. So you'll notice what this person's done is by adding the titles of these really, really cool positions that companies that they work for. When you get into this, though, you'll take a look. United Technology, UTC, International Office, Brussels. You're like, whoa. But then you look, they were just an intern. It doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. You just saw the name of a company, and if it's international and you see Brussels, you're going to go, yes, this person's got it. International Relations Organization, Fund for Public Interest and Research. Bam, bam, bam. They just gave you some numbers that are like right over the top, and they're showing you what they've done. Right? You get down here. I like the Fund for Personal Interest Research. Personally raised over $10,000 in office, exceeding the group fundraising goal by 150%. Those are hard numbers, right? So you can see all the positives that this person's got. Now, how could this have been improved? Maybe taking some of the details under here and bullet pointing them might be something you could play around with. Again, it depends on the size of your resume, how you want to organize that resume, right? If you want to keep it straightforward and to the point, I wouldn't use bullet points, okay? Because now I'm potentially at a 2-page document. Is it okay to have a 2-page resume? Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to keep it still short and simple, okay? I was talking to one of my like stepsister-in-laws. I don't know how you define that, but she worked for the forestry department. Okay, and we're talking the National Forestry Department, right? And she said we were talking about the size of resumes here, and we were talking about 1-page and 2-page resumes. And she says, federal government, they want almost a 50-page resume. They want every single small detail of every single thing that you did. And she goes, that's a difference, right? When you're applying for federal government positions, they want the big stuff. So that's where you have to know the company that you're applying for. Okay. Now it's the address piece. And again, maybe this is my own pet peeve, but you get kind of the idea, right? So Marcos goes, I'm a US permanent resident, but I'm a citizen of Brazil. Okay. That's okay. That's fine. We at least have the passport visa part taken care of. We got their current address. This is where we can reach them. It's not a problem. Okay. So we've got the current address. That's how we're going to reach them. There's the phone number. This is how we've got this. Here's where it gets confusing. You jump over to the permanent address, which happens to be in France, with a completely different phone number and a completely different address. So all of this whole permanent address piece, honestly, probably not necessary, because now I got too many phone numbers. Okay. So that, if I had any small pet peeve, that would be the one that I would say, let's get rid of that one. Okay. But maybe that person's putting it in there because they're hoping for a job in France. Okay, great. If they're applying for that job in France, they can certainly put that there because at least they know that they have a home number or a home, but they probably wouldn't want to put the phone number there because you don't want them calling that number because Marcos is back over here in Virginia. Okay, so, again, pick and choose what you're going to include in that actual resume. Okay, now these 2 resumes again are samples that you can pull out and maybe download and look for a copy for yourself. So definitely make sure that I would encourage you to do that. Any questions on the resumes at this point? Okay, we'll keep moving. If you got questions, we do have a spot at the end to answer those for you. Okay, again, consider those scannable resumes, right? Scannable meaning, if I send it in, are they going to run it through a scanner on their end, or are they just going to take that resume and shove it into their database? So make sure that the font and the format is important. If you've ever done those, do you want us to autofill your application with a resume? Um, yeah, scanners are old, but people, guess what? They use them digitally though. Okay. They still use them digitally. So, and that's where I was bringing up the whole concept of, do you want us to autofill your application with the resume? They'll autofill it. And I will tell you time and time again, I spend more time having to go back through it and fix it myself. So I will always say, don't autofill it. I will include the resume, but I manually type it all back in. I just have the resume sitting next to me. So I think that that's really, really important. It says now we have AI image text recognition, Chat GPT, for example. Yeah, we do, but those are not perfect. And certainly with the Chat GPT piece, and I'm going to bring that up, especially with the cover letters. I would never use them, period, because it's not personal, it's not specific. You're not going to get all the things that you want in those resumes. So again, do this manually still, typing it in individually, because again, remember, Robin, we're trying to tailor that resume for that specific job. And the AI type of programs are not going to do that at all. So it is just something to really be aware of there. Okay. Again, keep 2 copies for yourself. Use their terminology, just again as a quick reminder here. Okay. So now we talk about those cover letters. We are in the closing stretch right here. We are still ahead of schedule and time for some questions for you. So let's talk about that cover letter now. You've got your resume. They're going to ask for a cover letter. This is where you get to really be specific with what you are applying for and how cool you are for their job. Okay, so cover letters, again, it's an introduction to you and the resume. That's all it is. It's specific for that particular job. It shows that you're interested. You are going to be talking in that cover letter about how you like that company and about the programs that they did and what they did in that company. That's what you're specific about. That's what you're going to want to include. Let me give you, this is kind of just a little, it's a small example, but I think it'll work. If you've ever seen the movie Wedding Planners, or not, sorry, Wedding Crashers, not Wedding Planners, Wedding Crashers, there is a scene in there when the one guy is trying to basically kiss up to the senator, and he's very specific, and he makes this comment about, I really liked that proposal that you wrote about the fill in the blank thing that the Senate did. He grabbed one little thing off of the dossier of this guy, and that immediately caught his attention because it was like, look, I know that you paid attention. Now, that's where, again, going back to the Chat GPT thing, it can pull these things out. But guess what? If you haven't read it, if you don't know that material, can that come back and get you later? You better believe it. Okay. You get to expand on the information in your resume. So if I'm going to talk about the work, so if good old Marcos wants to talk about the work he did in Brussels, that's when you just start unloading. Let me explain this experience to you. Let me really tell you what you're focused on. Now, those hiring committees are going to look at those letters. That's what they're going to see, because remember, when you sent that resume in, the HR department scanned it, put it into that spreadsheet. That's all they focused on. The hiring committee will read the letters. That's what they're looking for. They want to see your personality coming through, about how enthusiastic you are. So if we go back to that creative strategist, that's where that guy is going to hype up everything he did in those Fortune 500 companies. He's going to highlight all those sales, and he's going to explain all of that stuff. We're going to make sure that we're using their terminology again, using their words, going to their job descriptions. That is so crucial. And again, check it for grammar. Okay. Remember, one cover letter doesn't work for every person. So even make sure that if in your closing of your cover letter, when you said, I was looking forward to working for you here at REI, and you've put that down there at the bottom, but now you decide that you're going to apply for Microsoft, you pay attention that you did not leave the word REI down there. Because as soon as you do that, you just told them you're just hitting send, send, send on every single thing, and you're not paying attention. So always pay attention to that. Check it for the grammar, check it for the spelling. Do not just rely on your grammar checker to fix those, okay? Because your grammar checker is not going to catch every single thing, okay? So cover letter sections, basic three parts, right? Our intro, our body, and our conclusion, right? Why you're in, so we start right here, the three parts: why you're interested in the company, why they should be interested in you, and how you're going to follow up, right? So your introduction, how you got in, how you found this particular position. If you had somebody in the company who said, hey, you need to apply for this job, it's totally cool, apply for that job and say, by the way, Bob Smith, head of marketing, told me about this particular position. I am so excited that Bob told me this. When I had a meeting with Bob, or I've worked with Bob on other types of things, that part is famous. But only drop those names if they are people that are that people in that company like. Okay, now it says, what about name dropping of famous people of who you've worked with, or famous other scientists who you met personally? If you've just met them personally, no. It's only the people that you have honestly worked with. Those people who honestly know everything about your work. I get this all the time in publishing, where people will sit there and go, this is like the really extreme one. Oprah is considering my book for their book club. Okay, Oprah's not considering that book because Oprah goes out, reads books, and then picks them personally. This person has probably sent it to Oprah and said, hey, Oprah, will you consider my book? And got the form letter back that said, we'll look at everything. And this person's name dropping things. So only name drop if they're people that have personally, honestly, truthfully worked with you, right? That's the key thing. In the body part, right? Talk about those 1 to 3 paragraphs. Your cover letter may hit to 2 pages again. There's nothing wrong with that one. Promote what you've done. Do not just repeat everything in your resume. Okay, don't just go back through and do that. And then the closing part, right? How you're going to contact them. Hey, I'm looking forward to this. I'd love a chance to maybe have an informational meeting with you. Love a chance to chat. I'm available here. I'm available. You show that you are available. You show them that you are more than happy to come to the company and meet with them. So in our REI examples, even though that's a remote position, you tell them, hey, I am more than happy. I am just down, say, in the Portland area. I am more than happy to make that 2 or 3 hour drive up to Seattle to personally come in and chat further about what I have to offer, showing them that you are accessible to them, right? Thank them for doing that. And with that closing, sincerely, respectfully, this is a professional business letter format. Now, if you're not clear on how to do those, I would really recommend just go to the OWL Purdue site, OWL Purdue. And OWL Purdue shows you a good structure for how to do a general business letter. Even if it's an e-letter, e-business letter, or one that you're attaching, it has to be a professional business letter format. Definitely do that. That's all I can say. Your tips for those cover letters, obviously proofread them. I always say get another set of eyes on that document to look at it. Personalize those. Make sure that you use address it specifically to the person you are applying to. Do not say to whom it may concern. That's not going to do that. Now it says limit the cover letter to 1 page. These come from like Indeed. Obviously, if your letter requires you to hit 2 pages, I would never go over 2 pages. But if you've got a lot of experience in that area, our Fortune 500 guy would probably get a 2 page cover letter. Okay. Don't use the word I. Now it doesn't mean I want you to refer to yourself in third person here. But when we say use, don't say I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then I did this. That's the repetition, right? So vary up those sentences a little bit. You sign your cover letter. Obviously, it doesn't need a signature on it, but you want to make sure that you sign it properly. Give us your name, exactly how we're going to refer to you. Use 10 to 12 point font. Never anything less than 10. Never anything over 12. Now, when we say use paper on this one, this is only if they want you to mail in all of this stuff. And yes, there are still companies out there who want it all mailed in and sent it in personally that way. If that's the case, you've got most paper that we have for copiers and printers tends to be pretty okay right now. But if you're really trying to hype that up a little bit more, you make it a little bit stronger. Okay. If you're including things like your references and everything else because they ask for it, and only include it if they ask for it. If they don't, do not include other stuff because you think you're trying to be helpful to them. Okay. Make sure that you put down enclosure, enclosed, whatever that might be at the bottom of the letter so that they know what else they can be looking for, and make sure everything is labeled. So if I'm labeling, like some colleges will often ask for, we have additional questions. You can put those in the header, additional questions, make sure your name is attached to it. Make sure there's a page number attached to it. You always have to remember, Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. If those documents get separated for whatever reason, we want to make sure that they can find them, that they can put everything together and they know who you are. So make sure that you're checking those things through. Okay. So we are in really, really good shape here. Just exactly where I expected we would be here. So we're going to open this up for some questions for people here. I want to make sure that you have the ability to reach out to me and ask questions, whatever that might be. So I'm going to do a stop share here, and we will open it up for questions for everybody here. And this is where I encourage you to, my internet now decides that it wants to start scanning things. So if you've got questions for me, I definitely want you to just chime in. You can put them in the chat box, or again, openly, just go ahead and just say, hey, Scott, I got a question. I will stay in this chat room until the last person's done asking questions. Or if I've got people who are just taping and they've walked away, I will probably just shut it down if I'm not getting questions here. So we have a question right here. Who's the first point of contact for a resume? It depends on the job that you're applying for. Okay. Depends on the job, right? If it's a small business, it might be the owner of the business. If it's a larger company, it might be the HR department. It might be the secretaries in the HR department who are sorting things first before the HR manager says, now let me sort things. The people in that hiring committee may never see your job, never see your resume at all because it got stopped early on for whatever reason. So that's where you want to just kind of know who the company is. Still, I would address it to whoever is in charge. So if it's a company, and we know that there is an HR department, I'm going to address it to the head of that HR department. That's who I'm going to address that letter to. Okay. Other questions? For cover letters, so let's see. For cover letters, what if we can't identify the specific person? Like I said, if you get into most companies, you could probably find the director for the HR department. So 9 times out of 10, if you do that digging, getting into the company, you can find it. If you don't, then I could address it to the hiring committee, specifically to that hiring committee. If you have experience in a remote role, should we specify that? on the resume. Only look, if you've got a job and you did this job and it all happened to be remote, then fine. Then tell us about the job. It doesn't. You don't have to say that it's remote unless the job says, unless the job's really requiring for you to say, look, I have this great skill set for being remote. Um, but you don't have to say it had to be only remote work, right? Um, if I'm applying for it's like teaching jobs, one of the things, especially with like Canvas class type of classes, is that teaching in Canvas, we can have face-to-face experiences. We can also have like workshop Zoom remote positions like this. We might have synchronous or asynchronous or fully hybrid. So I might vary up the words that I'm using when I'm applying, or if I'm applying for a job using like Canvas in particular, and those type of teaching abilities. So I think that that's the key thing is, include it if it's going to help. Okay. Any other questions here? Again, I will stay here and answer those questions. I have nothing more for you. So all of the information that we have is included in that module. So the PowerPoint's in there. This will get uploaded in the Zoom on the cloud eventually later today. It takes a while to get that loaded there. If there's any handouts that you want, make sure that you include those as well. So definitely make sure that you're paying attention to that information there. So what if we have a degree in a related field but have work experience in other fields? How should I present myself? Obviously, you're going to still list it with your job experience, right? It's still going to be in your work experience. It's a matter of whether you separate that. If you remember the example that I used, right? I have experience in K-12 teaching, college teaching, and publishing. If you look at a resume or you look to see what I've put together, I separate those into different categories. Very much kind of like Sydney did with her resume, where she had everything bullet point with the lines. I might separate it that way. So I'm still including degrees that I've got. So I've listed my degrees, but the work experience is going to show up differently. Okay. So I don't have a degree in publishing. That's not where my degree is at. My degree came from my English degree, moving into that publishing side of things. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going to end up putting that skill set. Hopefully that answered your question there. Any other questions here? I'm not trying to rush you out here, but obviously, if you got everything, like I said, I'll answer questions as they pop up. But like I said, all the material's there for you. So if you're kind of like, hey, I got everything I need here, this is awesome, or whatever it is, feel free to go ahead and, if you need to leave and get on to something else, you can. We